My name is James Bond, one of the founders of Undefeated, based in Los Angeles, California. I chose my existing career for multiple reasons, but the main one kind of by default. I fell into it. I had another business, men's clothing store, called K-Bond, that I started in 1999. At the time, Los Angeles really wasn't ready for men to wear suit and ties. It was like a men's haberdashery. Business failed, but in that process I met some people from Nike Europe that kind of led the way to Undefeated, which now 15, 16 years later, we're still here. So, you know, to take a step back, how I got here was my dad had a store in Philadelphia in the 70s. It was called Kicks and Lids. And that was off of another, again, a clothing store that he and his friends had, and they sold sneakers and Kango hats in the late 70s, early 80s. And they did that really until kind of the fashion trend changed. Foot Locker and Athlete's Foot at the time kind of ran them out of, the small guys out of business. Education-wise, not a good student. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. My parents were I'm a product of a mixed race relationship. Dad's black, mom's white. I grew up in a small rural town that really wasn't, they weren't really big on what we were at that time. I don't blame that. I kind of blame the fact that our family probably wasn't evolved enough to kind of pivot and work in that situation. So it kind of fueled my fire to be successful. So the first opportunity I got, I left. That was right maybe a week or two after graduating high school. I went back to Philadelphia, kind of got back to kind of that mix of people that, you know, for good or bad, I think you kind of learn to adapt to all the different people, how to react and move on. Experience-wise, from being 18, 19 in Philadelphia, really no parental backing at the time, I kind of really looked to self-educate and find that mentor, somebody that I could work with that could help me along the way. I think you always have to be moving forward, never sideways or backwards. So I, roommate, went to Philadelphia College of the Arts, was one of the first graphic designers I met. I interned for him. At the same time, I worked at Tower Records. So I had this parallel because I was really interested in music and design. So I interned, learning how to do graphic design, and then I worked at Tower Records. Tower Records kind of took off because my boss there liked me. We had a good relationship, so he became another mentor. I did that, and then quick chase, I ended up in Los Angeles with some friends from Tower Records. In turn, worked at Nana shoe business, fell into that job, but again, it was still design-based, it was sales, it was business. My boss there, Lynn, took a liking to me, liked my hard work. Fashion business changed, Nana's business changed. I ended up coming back to New York City with a friend of mine who I worked with at Nana. He was an actor. Sitting on the stoop, having a coffee, his friend came up. They were talking. He said, "Hey, we're looking for some PAs." I said, "Oh, of course, I could do that." It was Biggie Smalls' first video. I was on Biggie's video 2 days in New York City. So the director and I had a conversation. I didn't look like everyone else that was on the site on the video shoot. Turned into working for this director as his PA. Turned into his art director. Met now who's still one of my closest friends and one of my biggest mentors, a production designer who brought me on his crew, and then I became his art director. And then for 5 years straight, we did every music video, hip hop, commercial. We were the biggest non-union crew in New York City, our art department was. Met my wife, who lived next door to him, and then my wife and I decided to sell everything that we had, and we went on a surf trip for 8 months around the South Pacific. I decided I wanted to go back into retail, open my own stores. So I formed a business plan, talked with my father-in-law, who was a very successful businessman, an entrepreneur as well. He was one of my biggest business mentors because of his I don't really care attitude. It's like, I'm going to do what I want to do, what's best for my life. It's kind of in our DNA of both families to be entrepreneurial. So I didn't do very well. He didn't pull the plug. He just said, well, let's find your port of entry. You know, when we talk about competitive advantage or ports of entry, I think the biggest thing is when building a business or building a relationship, it's what are you bringing to the table? what is it that makes you special? For us, what made us special was that we gave Nike an opportunity to participate in a culture that they were on the outside of. They were kind of on the fringe, so to speak. For us, we had the musicians, the artists, the people that knew us from our previous relationships, or previous jobs and careers. We had them. And so when they came to us, they figured if we're putting that on our wall, that's authentic to the culture, it's authentic to what we're doing. Being authentic in anything that you do is the most important, because that resonates to people. They understand, like, that's legit, that's for real, that comes from a place. Undefeated comes from something, rooted in sports. It's rooted in the fact that both my partner and I are from the East Coast, and we've been participating in this culture since we were teenagers. When Nike opportunity came, we took it. I partnered with Eddie Cruz, who's my partner to this day. We built the first Undefeated in Los Angeles, a well-curated sneaker business. Now we have 6 in the US, 8 in Tokyo, and 3 in China. So it's kind of blown up for us, so to speak. I think going forward, I think you always have to just find what it is that will make you special, what will make you stand out. A lot of times it's doing less, doing not as much as the other person that's kind of like, blah, look at me. I'm never looking at that person that's blah, look at me, because they have a personality that's not going to fit with me. They're looking for something that I can't help them with. It's the person that's kind of, really, I'm looking at it, a little more thought-provoking. It's like really kind of digging in, studying. I'm more interested in that person because I want to know what it is that they're absorbing. Because that's the only way we're going to have, you have to have dialogue. You have to be able to understand each other. Screaming and yelling I can't help you with that. If I could give you any advice, my advice would be to have a plan. And have a plan from not just a business plan, but a life plan. What is it do I want my life to be? What do I want to be? What do I want people to see? What do I want people to know about me? Because you can live in the shadows and be very successful and really be impactful. You can be out in front and be successful as well. It's what do you want your life ethos to be about? Because from there, you can build a lot from that. There's a lot. It's like a tree, right? What is your foundation? What is that main trunk going to be? And from there, you have multiple branches. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and there's a lot of people on the sidelines looking to be mentors or looking to be philanthropic. Again, it comes to how you really kind of present yourself. I think that, I've had tons of people present themselves in professional ways, and we've been able to help and support. We've had people come at us not so professional, but had something where you just kind of talk to them. Let me figure out how I can help you, soften those edges a bit, so that the person that you're dealing with isn't so threatened by just kind of your energy. There's you have to have a little bit of, be a little bit humble when you're sitting with someone, because you're asking them for something. You're asking them to not maybe either mentor you or give you funds to build something. You can't really have that I know everything or I got this covered, because you clearly don't, because you're asking somebody for something or you're asking for the funds. So I think it's really just how you present yourself first and foremost. Is probably the biggest, that's the first step in my opinion. Once you find that mentor, you find the person that's going to support, I think you stay loyal to them by staying who you originally presented yourself at. You always have thread. You're always going to evolve and you're going to change, but there's always that initial thread. Again, back to that tree trunk metaphor, is they know that that's there, and they know that you're going to grow. They expect you to grow. As anyone that I mentor, I expect them to grow, and they will outgrow my relationship where I'm not so much a mentor but a friend, and just give me a call, if you need my help. I think that's how you stay loyal. You always seek their advice. You listen to their words. You might not use their words, but at least, I feel like you're coming back to me, so I still feel connected. There's a lot of ways to be loyal, but I think it's just that I always appreciated everyone that's always looked out for me, and whether it's a simple text or a phone call, or if I'm in the city, I try to make a chance to go have a coffee or just say what's up, just to have, that physical, whether it's a hug or thank you, or I'm never asking for a return on my investment like that. I feel like it'll come in other ways. When we traveled a lot, I was either with somebody, or when I did trips on my own, we'll talk about that, is that it wasn't that I was seeking out anyone. It was kind of when I was kind of digging into something, the initial conversation of, I'm looking for X, and that person was like, oh wow, that's interesting that you're looking for that. It kind of started a dialogue, and then it led to just a little bit of, oh, he's looking, he's digging. That person kind of leads you to somewhere else or leads you to another person, and somewhere in that thread, you will meet someone that'll be a little more kind of open to conversation, and some people that are less open to conversation. It's more like it's your journey. It's kind of, if someone said 1 word or 10 words, it's what you got out of those words. Sometimes someone has said less to me, I got more out of, just because it made me dig more and find the answer for more of myself. For me, less is more, but I think as you kind of find your own way and your own confidence, as you, again, present yourself more, people gravitate to that and they present back as well. I have a lot of different influences. I mean, I grew up, really enjoying music. I really was, early in the punk stages, I really enjoyed and was fascinated by the London scene. So when I went to London, I really kind of enjoyed, I like their style. And, originally my grandfather was my biggest style influence. He's Quaker, rural Pennsylvania, but he shopped at a general store every season, and he had his 2 suits. He had a dark and a light. He had the shirts, 3/4 shirts, 2 ties, everything always worked together. And I was always amazed by just that uniform. You could put everything in a bag and you could travel the world. And I always kept that in the back of my mind. So when I went to London and saw the ska, punk, the corner boys who wore the sweatsuits and the trainers, all those were influential. Japan to me was more of just kind of the meditative state of, from the rock gardens to sand gardens to, their gardens to, the way of the samurai, all those kind of that, again, because I grew up very much kind of solo, and I like kind of that solitude. So the Far East was very much like that for me, But then the bigger cities, New York, London, Paris, that metropolitan feel I embraced as well. So I've tried to find a happy medium between the two. We built a gym here in Los Angeles that very much is very serene. It's not like the kind of the bro. It's very quiet. We'd never have more than 10 or 15 people in there at any given time. But then we also have combatives, which is jiu-jitsu. So it takes that, you're always kind of battling that inner fight that you have. So it's kind of I've taken all of that. The stores are super, quiet and simple, natural materials, because that's what I'm inspired by, kind of nature. I enjoy being outside. But yet I have to build it all around commerce because, I do have to, take care of 80 plus employees and their families, and I have a lot of that feeling of that responsibility. So we've tried to make it as easily digestible to everyone, not as threatening. I feel like anyone can walk in, from a kid to a mom to a grandmother and not feel threatened. And our staff is really well trained and super good with, knowledge of product and how to deal with people. So I think overall we've taken, my partner Eddie Wells travels a lot, we've taken everything that we've kind of compiled from around the world and helped put it in one box, and there's a little bit of feel for everybody.